Greetings and salutations, my favorite sperm deposits. Thralls of Metal back again for another excellent album review. I am Shredlord.
Necrotic Nick.
And today we bring you Mortiferum's Preserved in Torment.
This comes out on the 5th of November, kicking off November for us here. On Profound Lore Records, this band formed in 2016 in Olympia, Washington, part of the rabid Pacific West Coast whole death metal scene. I mean, I'm repping it right now. This is their second full length. They actually did a split with Hyperdontia, which is coming out with an album here really soon too, last year. And well, this band is pretty much busy in that scene. 3 of the members in here are also in the death grind band Caustic Wound, which made my year-end list last year. And in fact, this band's debut album, Disgorged from Psychotic Deaths, made my year-end list the year before. So, needless to say, I had some pretty high expectations for this because this is just some bleak, disgusting death doom, just the way it should be.
The opening track, Eternal Procession, solid track. But I did want to talk about this for 1 second, only because I felt like it was more mid-tempo in the beginning. It should have been slow and doomy.
Actually, I kind of
Eternal
noticed
Procession,
that, yeah.
I'm like, I'm waiting for the slow funeral march to start or something really somber. It actually kicks off right away at a fairly solid mid-tempo pace.
Oh, dude, it does, but it lays on that thick, low tremolo. I mean, it feels swampy and evil.
Oh, yeah, great song. I'm just being nitpicky when I say that. It's
I know
more
what
for humor's sake.
I mean, most of the time when you think of death doom, you don't expect it to really erupt right away. Like, no, let's build the grime and the filth and all the
it
sorrow.
erupted right away, especially when, as I finished writing down the title, Eternal Procession. I'm like, okay, it's the beginning of the album, Eternal Procession, somber. No, it goes right in and kicks you in the balls and it starts.
And, I mean, the overall sound, if you're familiar with their debut album, very much a continuation of it, although this one doesn't take the time that the opening track on that album did to build up. It's just right into it. And that was kind of a thing that I noticed, that this does feel like a complementary piece to the first album, especially when you look at the 2 album covers too, because you have this view from inside the cave, or as I thought it was like Cthulhu's butthole and we were the poo. You know, that kind of makes sense with us.
Cthulhu.
Yep, that's us. We're kind of shit.
Little shits.
But on this one, it's the whole view outwards towards the cave. It wasn't a butthole the entire time. Imagine my disappointment.
Aww.
But this kind of feels like a continuation of it, though there are some slight differences in terms of maybe the production. I think the guitars on this feel a bit beefier, a bit crunchier. And one of the main things I noticed on here was lead work was a little bit more prominent. Before, you kind of just like got some squealy dive bombs here and there. And, you know, they complemented each other with like good harmonies, of course, because if you're doing death doom, you have to have the most bleak, sorrowful harmonies ever, which you get kind of all over this album. It's pockmarked well. Generally, they like the harmonies. The harmonies are kind of the thing that really drive the doom side of this. But I was really kind of surprised with the lead work.
Yeah, it was good, but to me, it felt like there were 2 separate schools of thought. In more towards the beginning of the album, you get more of the traditional Kerry King, Jeff Hanneman, The Sky is Falling, chaotic thrash riff over just like chaotic fast guitar playing. The second half of the album seemed to take more of a melodic approach and even borderline shred approach in some spots, which I did not see coming considering, you know, the more Slayer type vibes in the beginning. But it sounded really good, and it was kind of cool to have both schools of thought on that album.
And what's really cool about this album is it's only 6 tracks, but the 6 tracks are very long, and you get a lot of cool movements within each song, especially Incubus of Bloodstained Vision. Again, we have a band that has awesome song titles, and that's kind of close to a band we just ranked with Incantation, because these guys like to do those abrupt tempo shifts, like going from blast beats to the most bleak kind of death doom breakdowns ever. If I was to compare this to like more modern acts, or at least they're kind of close, like this is definitely close to Cerebral Rot, except more melodic, but also kind of close to Tomb Mold when they're kind of at their mid-tempo and chuggiest, except more gloomy. So yeah, I don't know, they add a little bit to each sound there, but generally what they add is darkness and filth, and I have no problem with that.
Now, one thing I noticed while listening to this is, to me, it felt separated by 2 trains of thought here. The first half felt very upfront, very black metal, very aggressive, fast in your face. And as we progress into the back half of the album, while the aggression is still there, it seems like they're more able to harp on a riff or or set on a melodic part before firing into a blast beat section or something just really fast and aggressive. They kind of peppered in more melodic stuff here, and I found myself being more drawn to the back half of this album. Now, one of my favorite tracks on the entire album is Codex of Flesh. It's not to say that it doesn't have a ass ton of ass kicking in it, but the song opens up more melodically, and the riffs are just grooving as well, man, and they're letting them breathe a little bit before they go right into a new blast beat section or something a little bit more chaotic and aggressive. And this is also a track where the guitars really stand out as well. There is some excellent melodic double lead work here, and the riffs are just fucking insane. This album is filled with insane riffs, that's for sure. But once again, I can't stress enough to me as a listener how I generally, my ear is drawn more to the melodic stuff. So when that back half of the album hit, it really drew me in. So this song being the second to last, right? Yeah, I believe the second to last track. This could have been this could have been the closer. To me, it might be the strongest song on here. Maybe it's just opinionated because it's my favorite, but it was damn good.
For me, I really like that song as well because it kind of brought in some chuggier, more straightforward death metal riffing. A lot of this, they kind of like lay on that deep tremolo and then kind of break it up with like big death doom sections. But the opening track, Eternal Procession, and the last track, Mephitis of Disease, both bring in like kind of funeral doom elements where it just slows down to a crawl. You're just playing single notes or single chords with the harmony, and the low, gurgly, echoey vocals are just
he's
filling the void.
He's got the microphone on the other end of the high school hallway, and he's just screaming down it. There's reverb for days on the vocals.
But here's the thing, like, I like the production. I think it's well mixed, and they got all that reverb and all that atmosphere in there. And when it comes down to atmosphere, they're not trying to plug in like lots of samples or keyboards or anything here. It's all generated by the music, and that kind of gives this album a really good flow from front to back. The thing that I like with their style is it really does feel like, again, a lot of the stuff that comes out of the Pacific Northwest, but also like kind of a little bit like Finnish death metal, like Finnish death doom, like early Amorphous, early Sentence, stuff like that, or, you know, like Gorephilia for a more, you know, recent band. It really kind of lays on that sound, and I like the fact that, again, it breaks up with different kinds of riffy moments versus the big death doom breaks. So the death doom breaks are spaced out enough to where they don't really get boring. Another thing I really like on this is the drum work. I think the drum work is nice and varied for death doom. It doesn't just lay on the slow. It actually brings in a lot of different kinds of beats in there. And that ride cymbal is like a dinner bell, and the only thing they're serving is rotted slop, but we'll gladly have another serving because this is just disgusting once again. My only complaint on this is it was hard for me to find standout tracks because they all kind of stood out for the same reason. But that reason was a good reason. They all delivered that death doom atmosphere, big, just kind of morbid angel-y sort of incantation-like riffs, and just an overall feeling of overwhelming dread, which, thank you? I mean, I kind of look for that in death doom anyway, but yeah, I mean, that's a great feeling. It's a lot of the same ingredients used to construct, you know, different songs, and honestly, they're the same ingredients I love in death metal and doom metal anyway, so I really can't complain much. The one thing I will say that I think is an improvement is I think this definitely has more melodic leanings, but it's not enough to say, oh, this is them selling out and getting all pretty and bullshit. It's not that. It's still ugly and ferocious as hell, but it kind of adds another dimension to them. You know, the lead work changing up towards the end actually kind of, you know, gives it a little bit of spice that wasn't necessarily there on the first album.
It's almost like showing an evolution mid-album.
Yeah, and maybe like one or two kind of odd transitions. The song Seraphic Extinction, it starts off very slow and gloomy. I like the way it builds, but it kind of abruptly does this little pocket of blast beats.
That song should have been called Eternal Procession.
Yeah, that one kind of builds, but then it just kind of ditches the blast beats and goes back to that build, but it brings back those blast beats, but it's kind of cool because they build up to it. It's a slow ramp up versus this abrupt shift. But that's kind of like the incantation thing, like, you know, from the extreme shifts between the two styles. I just thought that was kind of an odd transition, but most of the time, this really runs really smoothly, and it's just horrendous sounding in a good way.
So let's get down to the rankings, Jack. Overall, I think this is a very solid listen. I'm gonna give this a 3.5 out of 5. I think this is a solid album, very heavy. I really enjoyed the album as it opened up towards the back half. And I think for their second album, this band has a lot of fucking promise. I don't think I want these guys to sell out, but I definitely wouldn't mind if they continued on the path of the second half of this album, because I thought that it was something a little bit unique and a little bit special. Not to say that the front half wasn't good, but the front half was more a little bit traditional style. I think they injected a little bit more of their own personal flavors towards the back half of the album. So overall, solid ass listen, great album. Definitely go check it out with your ear holes.
I am going to go with a 4.5. I really dug this. I think this is an excellent continuation on their last album. I think it broadens up the sound a little bit more. The production's excellent. The album flows really well. Like, this is a front to back listen, and you are just engaged with all these great riffs, these bleak doom sections on here. I like the whole shift from like death doom to almost funeral doom. This is just, you know, kind of what death doom should be, and this is kind of the more raw side. It's not intended to be very melodic, but I do like the little spritz of melody that's in there. Just a spritz, that's it, that's all it needs. It's steeping in filth right now. You don't want to ruin it. Don't let a flower pop up on there. We'd have to kill it immediately. This just kind of gets right down to business and just bulldozes you very slowly. This is, yeah, just a foul, disgusting listen, and back-to-back solid albums. I don't know if this is better than their first album, but it is at least on par with it, and I think that album is a great album. So yeah, if you weren't a fan of Mortiferum before, I don't know if you become a fan based on this, but you should be, because this is just awesome death doom, and I recommend you guys check it out. They will be at Maryland Death Fest next year. I plan on seeing them, probably buying a shirt at least, and I imagine they'll probably be on tour other places. I recommend going and check them out live, because I can only imagine this shit kicks ass live.
So, if you like what you saw, please hit the like and subscribe button. If you are not subscribed to our channel, we would greatly appreciate it. And also, you'd be notified when we release new content, which is pretty much all the time. Also, if you would like to support us, we are on Patreon with the link down below. Or if you'd like to get yourself into one of our awesome Thralls of Metal Dig t-shirts, you can go ahead and send an email to thrallsofmetal@gmail.com with the caption t-shirts, and we will send you an invoice. So on behalf of my shithead cohorts and I wish you adieu. And we are getting the hell out of here, so have yourself a good day, and we will catch you later.